Hi, this is Cherie with Rehashfiber. Today is jam-packed with information. I've got a one skein project for you with magnificent yarn. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. Last February was the Tampa Bay Yarn Crawl. That included a variety of stores in the whole Tampa Bay area. The last place I went to was Stash in St. Pete. And I found a beautiful skein of the Manos Del Uruguay yarn, which is actually from Uruguay. It is a co-op of women around the country making this yarn and dyeing this yarn, then making a living for their families as the yarn works its way to around the world to be sold. So I found a beautiful skein. This skein was sock weight and superwash merino. The colors are phenomenal. They're muted and they look kind of natural, but they're very, you could say, still vibrant, even though muted, if you can understand. It was just beautiful and intriguing, and then kind of fun that it came with a pattern. So I didn't have to think or search, which was great. Okay, so going back to Manos Del Uruguay, when I first learned that that organization was going on, I was very intrigued because that is there, and also the yarn Malabrigo is there. So actually last winter, I looked into taking a trip to see Malabrigo in Montevideo because I was curious about a tour of the factory and the farm. So that was one aspect. And then I wanted to search further, go into the country, into the villages, and meet these women and see what they were doing. But a few things needed to come into play for that trip to happen, and that did not happen, so no trip. It is still in my mind, and I do hope to go there. So when I found this yarn, it just kind of meant something more because I had already looked into and researched the area and just knew a little bit more. And I knew that women worked on the yarn to make a living for themselves. All right, so talking about the pattern, it is a cowl. And what was interesting is that it had the Indian cross stitch, which was really neat because each round was 220 stitches. And after a while, you do need some kind of pattern going on to make it more interesting, or otherwise you are just knitting for days. So it was pretty cool. The thing I needed to do for this, and I'm going to show you, is that I needed to switch from American knitting to continental knitting because this arm does experience a lot of fatigue because it's constantly in use. And so anytime I can use my left hand, and I advise you guys this, if you do it as much as I do it, start using your left hand for things. I've started drafting with my left. I wish I would have got a drum carder for left hands because how much dexterity does it take to do this? It doesn't. And this arm's tired. This arm could be doing that work. But I have a right-handed drum carder. So that is just something to think about. But just keep that in mind. And I know it seems weird at first. I was ready for him. I know it seems weird at first to think, or to make your hand do something it's not used to. I have felt it all. But then once you start doing it, it kind of grows and develops to where your body is more apt to be able to pick it up the more you use your left hand for things. I went as far as to learn left-handed knitting. And that was just really taking me back to the days when I first learned how to knit, or when you first learned how to do anything and everything feels clumsy. But then it started to come together. I'm not doing that because there's no speed in it, but it was really interesting to try. So back to this pattern. I switched between continental and American. I'm very efficient with the American knitting when it comes to doing special stitches, so I needed to just stick with that. When I was doing a round of 220 knits or purls, I surely switched over to continental because then we can just go to town. I'm going to show you the switching between the American and the continental. I'm also going to show you the Indian cross stitch because that's really interesting. I would like you to see the difference between American knitting and continental style knitting. American knitting, you hold the yarn in your right hand, insert your needle, and you wrap the yarn around the needle, bring it through, and with your left hand, push the yarn off. Now for continental style knitting, you bring the yarn to your left hand. I wrap it once around the pinky, bring it up and over my pointer finger. Now the needle is going to be inserted the same way, but now we have our yarn right here and we just have to pick it up, which is called picking. It eliminates that movement of throwing, which can save your arm if you are doing a ton of knitting. So that is how you do the continental style knitting. We're going to talk purling. American style, your yarn is in the right hand and you send your right needle into the front of the yarn on the left needle and you wrap it around the needle and pull it through. That is your American purling. So again, you're throwing because you have to do that extra step to get the yarn wrapped around the needle. Now let's switch over to continental purling. You hold the yarn in your left hand. Again, I wrap it around the pinky, bring it up over the pointer. Now, right needle, you still come into the front of the yarn on the left. You use your tall finger to push the yarn down, take the needle through, then push it off the left needle with your tall finger. So you see that this tall finger does a little bit of work. It's still not as much as throwing, but it does do some work. We go into the front, see, push it down, bring the needle through, push it off. It still is a less dramatic movement. It takes a little bit to get used to. I remember when I was first learning, it felt awkward. It's always a little bit hard at first, but then you get used to it. All right, into the front, push it down, bring the needle through, push the yarn off the left needle with your tall finger. Once you get the hang of it, you can get into a really nice flow. And then your right arm is just not as tired as it usually would be. In this pattern, there's a 6-round repeat to the pattern. In the 5th round, it is a knit wrapping the yarn double. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. You just knit as normal, and this is American style knitting, but wrap it twice around the needle and bring it through. Show you again, wrap it twice, bring it through. We'll knit it one more time. And that's how you knit, wrapping it twice. What really helps to keep this pattern interesting is the Indian cross stitch. It is the 6th round in the repeated pattern. The previous stitch I taught you about knitting, wrapping it twice, that is your setup for the Indian cross stitch. What you're going to do is bring the yarn to the front as if to purl, but you're going to slip the stitches, releasing that extra stitch to your right needle. You're going to move 8. You're going to slip 8. So that was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now you have 8 long stitches because you wrap twice in the knitting. Now to cross over, you're going to go to the first 4 on the right here, and you're going to grab them. You're going to bring them over these 4. Be mindful not to drop these while you're passing. And I always recount when I get back over here to make sure there's 4. So you brought those 4 over. Now you're going to slide this needle on the left through these 4. Now your 8 stitches are back, but they're crossed over. Now you're just going to purl into each one of those. And I'm doing the American style purl. And just purl 8. Right, so we've got them all back over and they're crossed. It leaves kind of a neat little hole for a pattern. We're going to do it one more time. We're going to slip 8 stitches purlwise, dropping that extra loop, 1, 2, 7, and 8. Our 8 slip stitches are on the right needle. Going to pass over 4, slip the needle into these 4, bring them over. Keep them all on that right needle. Now you're going to take the left needle and go right back into the 4 you just crossed over. All 8 stitches are back on the left. Purl into them. Can get that picked up. If you drop a stitch in between, just back your way back out of it as if you're undoing. Turn your project around, move the stitches back over, and go back and look for it. That's happened a couple times. Like, where's the 4? There's only 3. Lost one. Okay, good luck. I hope you don't lose one. Oh, I just lost one there while I was talking. Right, there's the 8. Right back on. And off we go for this round with the Indian cross stitch. All right, so here's the cowl on display, a little bit better. It's gonna be really fun to wear. I'm very excited. It's so soft, and you know, when it's coolish out, whether it's hiking in the mountains or a cold winter day here, that's gonna be great to wear. All right, so I told you that I found it at the Tampa Bay Yarn Crawl. It was my first time taking part in that, and it was a blast. It was really fun to see what was in my area, but I was also doing it for you guys. I wanted to show you what not only the stores were like, but what was near the stores. Most of the stores are near magnificently beautiful beaches, and the ones that are not are near either downtown Tampa, downtown St. Pete, or Tarpon Springs. So downtown Tampa has a 2.4 mile river walk with all kinds of things along the way for you to see. It's just a really good downtown area to check out. And then for downtown St. Pete, it is a whole different vibe, but it's also waterfront to the bay. And there's just restaurants and really pretty shops and galleries. And it's just a really kind of cosmopolitan yet beachy place to be. Very nice to check out. And then the other place by my home store, Fiber Art Gallery. The closest really interesting thing is Tarpon Springs and the Sponge Docks. It's still a little bit a ways away, maybe a 20-minute drive. If you go to Fiber Art Gallery, it's worth going over to Tarpon Springs. It's the largest Greek community in this country, and so you have the sponge docks where they actually send boats out to the Gulf and dive for sponges, but there's restaurants and shops, and it's just really cool and great Greek food. And also right near the sponge docks is downtown Tarpon Springs, which is a lovely small town downtown with fun things like a brewery and wine and ice cream and shops. So that's worth checking out too. There is one store in the Tampa Bay Yarn Crawl that is inland. It's 4 pearls and it's in Winter Haven, and it is very much worth the trip heading towards the center of the state. The yarn shop will blow your mind because it is big and there is just so much in there, and the owners are so nice. And it's also in the historic part of downtown Winter Haven, so there's a lot of character where the store is, and then just a block away is like the town square, and it's just really neat to check out. And if you're going to stay in that part of town in Winter Haven, check with 4 Pearls because they have some agreements with an Airbnb for you to have a place to stay. So it's worth checking out. Another thing, if you do come to the Bay Area Yarn Crawl, I would love to meet you. If you're watching these shows and you come to my neck of the woods, Fiber Art Gallery is 8 miles down the road from me. And I would meet you there when you're there, and we could just visit. I would love to see and meet the people that take part in this with me. So just let me know. Okay, the other thing is I invite you to join the Rehash Fiber Tribe. That would be helping to support this programming. So if you go to my website, rehashfiber.com, you can go to the supporting members, and for as little as $2 a month, it's extremely helpful. Also, there's merchandise. I've got a logo with t-shirts and other great items, and if you purchase that, it really helps. And it's also kind of fun. So I just wanted to let you know about that. I'm also having a drawing for the first 15 US monthly subscribers. So just keep that in mind. There's going to be a great skein of yarn that's going to be given away after we have the first 15 people. All right, that's it for today. Happy knitting, and thanks for watching.